Today's topic, I will kind of give you just an introduction about quantum biology. Okay. So what is this quantum world that we keep hearing about quantum physics and all of that? So this is the universe of subatomic particles. Now, as you know, every atom has a nucleus. The nucleus has a neutron, it has a proton, it has electrons going around it. Now, while the world always thought these were the smallest possible particles, they were in for a big surprise and shock. And we found that there was what we call, particle soup. And you name it, you have quarks, you have leptons, and the names are just crazy. Okay, I mean, there's a name for everything, and you got the God particle coming in, and a whole lot of stuff. But what is actually the dynamic in quantum biology is a lot of these particles, they kind of form a union together, okay, by some underlying principle that we are yet to discover as to how certain things become entangled, which means that many of these particles are like a group of buddies, okay? And if something happens to one, it influences the other particles, okay? And they start to change their state because something has affected something else. So entanglement is one thing where you have a group of these subatomic particles together. And there's another thing which we call is pairing. So usually when it's pairing, what happens is it's just two particles, talking to each other. And you would have heard about things like spooky effect, where if you change the state of this particle, the paired one automatically changes no matter how far apart they are. Okay. And they've actually done experiments. They've split up these paired particles and put one into outer space, and they've been able to see the spooky effect happen over like, really long distances. Okay. So it's still, again, man has got to get a lot more into theoretical physics and then try to prove it and try to see evidence for it. It's evolving, and we're getting to understand the way the world works. But everyone thought this was just something isolated to what scientists thought and what we created and what we invented. But before quantum physics or any kind of physics ever existed, there was biology on this planet. And the biology doesn't make a distinction between what's physics, what's subatomic, it doesn't know. It just evolved, and it worked with the powers of the universe. And one report says that some evidence suggests that many organisms will, take advantage of this features of quantum mechanics to gain a biological advantage. So their existence in the world will actually depends on a lot of things that actually happen in the quantum world. Okay, and I'm going to give you a few examples of these and talk a little bit about it. Though I know it's not something that's going to affect your goals right now, but what is going to tell you is that there is a lot beyond your body just being, just a piece of group of cells put together and, and organs and whatever. Okay. So there was a very interesting experiment that they did. They wanted to find out how do birds actually navigate. And so what they had to do was they had a feeling it used the Earth's magnetic field. Okay, and they had, of course, there was a hunch for that. But then if there's a magnetic field, okay, it's not like your cell phone where you've got this magnetometer and you've got a compass, and they don't have any. Birds don't have that, right? They don't go around the compass looking around and say, hey, well, that's north. No, that never happens. So they tried to find out how the bird is able to detect this. So they put the bird in an isolated, plastic kind of container, round one, and created an artificial magnetic field, just putting two magnets around and turning it around. And in its natural state, the bird started to move around where the magnet was going. It would started to try to get out of the cage and was pecking in those areas. So they said, okay, now we know that it is reacting to the magnets. Now let's start covering parts of the body. So they covered the beak, they covered the body completely, and then they started covering different areas. Finally, they covered the eyes. And once they covered the eyes, they found out the bird was starting to get confused. It was not able to pick up these changes. It got totally random and it started pecking all over. So obviously now they said, okay, the eyes have a big role to play in this. And they said, okay, now that we know it's the eyes, how is it actually happening? And of course, they had a hunch that there's something to do with something which is physics related rather than anything else. And what they discovered is that the eyes of the bird are able to detect paired electrons. Because there are two electrons which are paired. I mean, they've become friendly, they got married, or whatever you want to call it. And as you go to different parts of the magnetic field, the spins of these electrons change. Okay, so I guess, don't quote me, but when you're at the equator, they both spin in the same direction. And as you go north, one will spin, vertically, the other one will spin horizontally, and then the opposite happens at the south pole. So, and we can go and look it up. I mean, it's not important for this conversation, but there is a difference in the spin, and the bird is able to pick up this the spin difference, and through that it's able to know whether it's going more north, more south, more east, more west. And of course, all the other things will be genetically passed down, migrationary patterns. So there's a whole lot of information packed into the bird along with the navigation. Okay, they can navigate, but they have to know where to navigate. So probably that's another science. And yeah, I'm sure there are 100 scientists already getting down to the middle of it. So and like I said, the bird didn't know about quantum physics. This is just how biologically it evolved. Okay, so that's now, I think in our earlier days in school and biology class, we learned that smelling was done by the nerves in your nose, and the way the molecule would sit. Okay, let's say it was like, if it fit in this angle or it fit in that. So the aroma molecule would go into the nose and it would fit in a particular way, and the nose was able to detect it. That was a very long-standing theory, and that's what they believed would happen until somebody went back and said, "Hey, I understand this molecule fitting thing," but somebody suggested that cyanide and banana smell the same. Okay, don't quote me on this, but it could be some fruit and cyanide. I think that was what the argument was. And why do they smell the same? Now they're completely different molecules. Okay, the structures, I'm sure you know. I mean, you can just guess that the chain will be completely different. And based on that, he said, if they're different molecules, they can't smell the same. Because they would fit in different angles in the the sensory area of their nose. And they finally discovered that the nose actually hears. It doesn't smell. The word smell doesn't really exist. And that's crazy, right? So it detects the vibration of the molecule. And what they discovered, the vibration frequency of this banana molecule and the cyanide molecule are identical, because that's the way that they kind of vibrate. And so what does the brain do? It will pick it up from its memory and say, oh, I remember smelling banana. It's vibrating at the same frequency. Therefore, this is banana. That's it. And, it baffled the world. And of course, I'm sure they've been able to prove it, and that would be quite easy to do that. All you have to do is detect, different fragrances and find out what is their oscillation for their resonant frequency, and put them together, and they probably would smell the same. So this is becoming very astounding, okay, in the way we think of our bodies, because a lot of things actually happen, and we've just been observational about it, but we've not gone down to the parts of why these things happen and how do they really happen. Somebody's come out with a theory, it kind of gets accepted, nobody has a better one, and they just say, yeah, so what, I can smell, what's the big deal? Now, what's the big deal is, tomorrow, let's say, you can't smell, you have some problem, you have an accident or something. Is there a way I can recreate this biology? Can I recreate this electronically? Or can I give this ability to a computer to be able to actually smell? Because now that I understand this tech, I understand what's really going on. Mm-hmm. So it will bring up big advancements. And how is that important? Let's say I have to go down into a cave, and before anyone gets there, I want to know whether the atmosphere is breathable or is there a poisonous gas. So they might just send a probe down, because obviously there are many probes for it, but you could get something that's really intelligent, and you could say, I can tell you what's the composition of all the gases down there. And it's an advancement. So not only that, there are quantum physics plays roles even in enzyme production. Now, what do enzymes do? if you just think about life and how it's created, how a baby forms, it forms from a zygote. And how does this, just these two cells, and they keep dividing, and suddenly it looks the same. And then suddenly you get a bone structure, you get this one, then you find a heart forming. The heart forms, then you get skeletal structure, you get hair, you get eyes. Where does this all come from? And it's all about the enzyme production. And these enzymes actually will promote certain cells to behaving in a particular way. And how does all that happen? Okay, so there's a lot of quantum biology actually happening there, where the enzyme is discerning and its own propagation of what should happen where. Is it one? Is it two? Is it 10 enzymes? Wow, it could be many. We don't know. Another thing is also I kept asking people is that, okay, a plant needs sunlight. Okay. What happens if there's sunlight? I mean, how does that actually make a difference? So what is happening is that the cells in the leaf are actually capturing that photon. Okay. And that photon is actually adding to the aggregate of its structure. So that's how you're getting growth. It's just collecting photons and it's building bigger cell structures based on that input of light. Okay. And of course, the minerals that come through the roots, and they all interact together. And there's a whole lot of enzyme thing happening in the plant also as well. And it is just manipulating its energy that it's getting from light. And that's what photosynthesis is about. And so you can actually go and see what is the quantum profile of photosynthesis, and you'll get a lot of stuff on it. Now, they've even gone to the point where they're saying higher brain functions are actually happening at a quantum level as well. And they yet to to really put a nail on it, but they say things like, you're able to read people's minds, you're able to know something is going to happen. You get precognition. You say, oh, this is going to happen. Now you suddenly just stop and say, oh, I have a bad feeling about this. So a lot of these higher brain functions are being related to the quantum world. Because see, we've made of atoms. And out of atoms, we made of electrons and neutrons and protons. So why shouldn't that quantum world exist within us as well? It does. It has to, because if it exists in every other solid particle that's out there, or any material, definitely it's going to happen to us. But at what level? It's so microscopic. It's so quick. It's so hard to even detect until somebody goes and says, hey, I wonder why this happens. Now, if you know that the persistence of vision and the persistence of sound is 1/10 of a second. Okay, it takes 1/10 of the second for us to actually assimilate and do something about it. We sense it only 1/10 of a second later. So what is actually happening is, whatever we are seeing is 1/10 of a second in the past. Okay, and let's say we're driving a car or we're playing a sport. We're actually looking 1/10 of a second ahead and connecting, let's say, the racket with the ball. But the ball is already gone a little further at 1/10 of a second. Okay, so if something moves faster than 1/10 of a second, like people who play tennis and when they serve it really, really fast, and suddenly the ball will whiz past you faster than that. But yet it is so baffling that people return that serve where it is actually humanly not possible to react in that fraction of time. But they've already got to the ball and hit it back. So there is a certain amount of precognition that's happening. You're beginning to understand where what is going to happen, and you have a great sensitivity to what could this possibly happen at a chemical-based level, or is it happening at a quantum physics level? So it's opened up a lot of questions about what are these higher brain functions, and are they making a difference? And I guess that once we get a better understanding of how all the quantum science really works on our body, this will open up opportunities for new kinds of therapies. And I think in our previous discussion, we talked about sound healing, and that is also works at a quantum level. And we're beginning to understand that there are more non-invasive ways of improving our own, psychological profile, our physical profile, and it may also affect the world around us. Okay, and there was one thing that I particularly heard is that if a person is working at a level of a positive energy. Now, what is positive energy level? You're happy, you're at peace, because this is the highest levels of vibration, the emotional vibration that you have. And if that person is in a crowd, one person can lift another 1,000 people into that state of frequency. It just takes one person to lift another 1,000. And we can actually find some sense in that because we've had a lot of religious icons in the world through our history. And how is it that one person can actually change masses? And it's probably because of the way he is able to vibrate, and his emotional state of vibration is actually getting passed on to other people. So they've probably, I can only say that this can only exist through a quantum world. It can't exist in any other way. Okay, so there is something that's happening in this medium, and it can adversely affect you too. It can also work the wrong way. But they always say that the more higher states of energy are more penetrative and more effective. So so if anybody's worried about energy level, the place that you never want to be is at a place where you're feeling guilt and you're feeling ashamed of yourself. This is the lowest state or emotional state a human being can have. And you should never get, even if it's maybe it's your own pet. And sometimes you lock your pet for many hours, 10, 12 hours in your house, and just go away. Even a dog who start feeling extremely low. Okay. And it's not good for their well-being. And they start falling sick. The same thing can happen to small children, and it's around the world. I can see it happening, that the fact when they start to feel low, it really adversely affects you. But all it takes is 5 minutes. The owner comes in and the dog suddenly jumps in the air and leaps for joy, licks you all over. And getting into that state is actually easy. It's not difficult. It's just the anticipation. And then when you actually see it, they recognize happiness is back and they immediately jump back into it. So anyway, so I hope this has kind of given you a little bit of food for thought, some kind of enjoyable stuff that you can actually go and pursue on YouTube, or even just blogs. And there's a whole lot of, there's tons of information, and it's an extremely exciting and something to follow, because the world will change in the next 10 years, because this is going to become probably the next breakthrough that mankind might see. Okay, so thanks everyone for being attentive, and if there's anything else, I'm open to questions or anything that may come up to you. But for a moment, I'd say this is the end of the topic for now.